Hi, this is Lynn Everard, and today's message we're going to talk about the missing side of the five love languages. Now, you may be very familiar with a book called The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And the five love languages basically are the way in which most of us receive love. And those five love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, uh, receiving gifts, and physical quality time. Uh, so, and that's great. And we're all taught that we can discover our love languages. In many cases, our love languages actually are the love languages we did not receive when we were children. And so they become our love languages because essentially we may be trying to attempt to make up for what we did not receive when we were younger. I know in my own case, words of affirmation were really very important to me through much of my life because I never really felt like I received that as a child. But it also became interesting because once I learned how to give myself those words of affirmation, once I learned how to speak my truth, and be able to discover the truth of who I am, I no longer needed those words of affirmation. Now, it does not mean that I'm not open to receiving them. I am. But it means that I can also provide that for myself, which is something that I'm very grateful for. So, what could be missing from those five love languages? Well, the five love languages are about how we receive love, or the languages of love, and how we receive them. But there's a total another piece here that we need to look at. And the piece we need to look at is the people who are loving us, right? Because everyone who loves us is actually loving us in the way that they learned how to love as children. And in many cases, they've carried that through their life. So if someone loves us in their own way, we don't need to make them wrong for that. Yes, we can share what our love languages are as a request, but it's also important to recognize that that person may love us more deeply than we even understand if we're simply willing to open ourselves to the possibility that they don't love the way that we would like to receive love. It doesn't invalidate their love. I know in my own journey, one of the things that I've really had to come to grips with is I have these ideas of how people should love me. And, if they didn't do it the way that I wanted them to, then inside I would say to myself, they're not loving me right. Well, is that really possible? As long as love is coming from a loving place and a person grew up learning how to love in a certain way, because that's the environment that they were raised in. And as long as it's not unhealthy, as long as it's not going to be something that's damaging or dangerous, why not allow them to love you the way that they love? Why not receive the love that they have to offer you, even if it's not exactly the way you think it should be? Then you can also, in recognizing that, in acknowledging that, and in valuing that love that comes from that person, you can then also begin to have a conversation, if you so choose, to share what your love language is, and then they can share what their love languages are. And you can reach a place where each of you knows what the other needs, but you also both have your own way of loving, the way that you've learned to love. So my request at this point in time is to, yes, learn your love languages. Most of us have two. And so learn them, discover them, and be grateful for having them. But then also leave space for the people who come into your life who love you in their own way. And if you can be open to seeing that love in its healthy state, and if you can receive it from them, then you can move into the place of being able to discuss your love languages. And it works both ways, because if the love that you offer to them doesn't feel good to them, and they're not able to receive that love beyond their own love language, then that's something to consider. Because the last thing any of us wants is for our love to not be valued and to not be received. So just be open to that, open to seeing both sides of the equation. And again, when you look at that person's way of loving you and how they love, and look at your way of how you love other people and how you love yourself, it's a little bit more complex than the five love languages would lead you to believe. But definitely, if you haven't read the book, if you haven't taken the test, and you can find the test online, find out what your love languages are. It'll help you in being able to communicate that. So many of us, even once we know our love languages, we don't actually communicate to other people how they can love us. And again, there's a balance here. There's a balance between telling people how they can love you and being open to the love that they're already giving you, even if it doesn't look like your five love languages. Everything in life, everything, especially in the areas of love, everything is negotiable. Everything can be discussed. Everything can be worked through. It's when we decide no, that we're going to stay be in a position as opposed to taking a stand. And we get locked into our beliefs and locked into, no, this is how it has to be. Well, that's not going to create a very helpful environment for creating love in your life and to be able to experience both giving and receiving love, which is really meant to be a joy and something that makes life worth living even, and makes life have that extra zest that we all crave. So that's it for today. Again, if you have any comments, if you'd like to reach out to me, if there's things you'd like to work through, I can work with you as a life guide and as a coach. And with that, I will say, have a great day, and I will see you next time. Thanks very much.